it's Guido coming at you with a tank review, and we are moving on to the Tier 9s and the Christmas box tanks. This is the fourth review, I think, and then we'll have one more. We're going to, it's not the Squall. What is going on here? We're not even on the wrong, not even on the wrong tank. We're not even on the right tank. That's it. El Toro, which I thought was one of the Russian object tanks for, I don't know how many videos I mentioned that in, quite a few, but it actually is Italian. It's a Tier 9 Italian heavy, rear mounted, auto loader, loader, reloader, loader. So it's a auto reloader. It's got that 4-step reloading thing. Of course, you can shoot a shell at any time. This is the not the reverse kind like the Russians, but the Italian kind like the Italians, where if you say have 3 shells loaded, then the 4th shell is the fastest to load. So if you fire it as a cyclical gun, you're getting about a 10-second reload. We'll look into all of those numbers right there. A little bit tricky to use in World of Tanks based on the way the maps are designed and the game is played. The rear-mounted turrets tend to be trickier. You can certainly work them to good effect if you know how to do it. There are some advantages to them. For example, when they side scrape, the turret comes around the edge faster than the rest of the tank. It's pretty easy actually to hide your lower hull when you're side scraping with a rear mounted turret, depending on if you've got enough armor on the side. We'll talk about whether this thing does, but if you want the Cliff's notes, it's a heavy tank that doesn't heavy tank really great. The turret is okay. We'll look at the numbers, and the angling is nice and curved enough that it will do some heavy tank stuff in that regard, but the hull is not so good. This is not your face punching assault heavy. It's more of a support heavy. It's got quite a bit of firepower with 4 shells at 360 alpha, but I had a bit of a hard time with it. All right, so let's take a look. Talking about the firepower, your 248 pen with regular AP, your special round, premium round, is a heat shell at 315, which is pretty decent. 970 on the shell velocity with the heat's not amazing. 1200, almost 1300 really with the ABCR is pretty good. Makes it fairly comfortable to shoot. So you're getting up to 315. That's a good boost when you dab 2. What else we got? I had a pretty good crew. It's a gunner, radio operator. Commander, radio operator, gunner, driver, loader. You know, to be honest, I didn't quite look very closely at this. So let's go ahead and do that together. Take a look at the Italian heavy tanks. Not just 9, we want to go heavy. There we go. And boom. All right, so we've got a bunch of loader, auto loader, loader reloaders. How many are the same? Looks like a couple of them. Looks like most of them. That's not bad at all, fellas. So you got to love it. Look, oh boy. Looks like all of those except for the Rhinoscerante, which goes down to 3 crew. Looks like this one will then train your CC 55 Mod 54, your P88 actually, and your CC Mod 66. Nice. There you go. So it's not some kind of weird one-off crew. That's always nice. All right. I ran vents. I have vert stab. I've got an IA. I would probably drop the IA. It's a really accurate gun, but this is kind of cool because it gets down to 0.29. So if you're talking about sniping and support, the IA is really dropping your dispersion down pretty nicely right there. So maybe something to think about. You could also go, hardening might help it be a little tougher out there potentially. It doesn't have a rammer. You can't do that because it's an auto reloader. So I think the other things in play are definitely the hardening. And you could do, say, the experimental turbo, or maybe even just a regular turbo, or one of bounty or improved, whatever you want to do. But you could probably put that turbo on. It's got good speed, but it would actually take it to another level. I'm not saying it's IS-7 kind of idea, but it's pretty zippy. And if you put that, experimental turbo on it, which helps a little bit with the shooting, so maybe drop the vert stab or even the IA and put the turbo on, you might get a little more reposition out of it. It is a zippy, heavy tank. Not bad at all in that regard. How did I do? 70% win rate, but my numbers do not support that. So definitely got very lucky with this thing. I survived 60%, only 10 battles, low sample size, only 64% on the hits. I'm not really sure why, to be honest. It's so low. Maybe I was just taking too many. I don't know. That one has me a little bit confuzzled, to be quite honest. And I think it'll take a few more battles before I figure that out. And it might have just been a string of bad luck. With a low sample size, you can get weird stats like that at times. But that's one that bears watching. Damage ratio 1.14, destruction 1.75. Okay, armor use, guys, at 0.34. That's not even really approaching situational. I've got a really good turret. The turret's okay, but not great, and I found myself getting pinned. The hull is pretty much cheese at tier 9. And look at this, only 1,335 average. I mean, that's just atrocious for a tier 9. I'm only 70% because teams carried me. If I'm averaging 1,300, that's sad. And my maximum damage was 2,785. So what I'm going to say about those stats is, and the tank in general, is I actually like the tank. I didn't do very well in it, so I'm not using it correctly, and more than likely it's because I'm heavy Mongo tanking it, and that's not it, right? That's not it. Problem is, in World of Tanks, you're a heavy tank, you're on the heavy tank list, and you may get into a map or a match or a situation or a team makeup where you kind of have to be the heavy tank, and you're at a bit of a disadvantage, you know, trying to take on E75s. If you can jump out and shoot a bunch of shots into them, great, but that's not always what happens in World of Tanks. So that's sort of the conundrum with heavy tanks that are more specialized like this one here. So that's how we did with it. How is it doing overall, though? Let's take a look at that. Kind of interesting information here, guys. It's currently at 6th on the NA server, but check it out. Decently good players are playing it. They are underperforming to the tune of minus 1.51. Notice that all of these tanks up here are not minus except for the Tiger Mouse, and it's not quite this bad. That's probably over time going to drop the Toro down into the middle somewhere, to be honest, if that holds out, because that's pretty bad. So it is an underperformer, it looks like, overall. I think it's a tank that has its strengths. If you are a good auto reloader kind of player, I think you might like it, especially with the mobility that it has as a heavy tank anyway. Certainly it's not a light tank in mobility. Let's take a look at the armor profile. This is what I was talking about. This is against its own gun with a 248 penetration. Look at that hull. It's just butter. I mean, there's almost nothing you can do with the hull to do it. You can side scrape, but now you're just showing that. I mean, I don't even know. There's just hide it. You got to hide it. You got to try to keep people from shooting it. It does have -8 gun depression, which means you can use backsides and slopes and things like that. A little more than you might think with a rear-mounted turreted tank. So -8's actually pretty good. But then look at this. Probably somebody is already typing, yeah, but what about the Tuma? Yeah, I mean, that's American-esque giant tumor right there. When you come over a hill, when you're trying to do that back slope, that's the first thing that comes up and over, and it's just a shoot me, F me zone right there, fellas. I mean, I don't know. This looks great. I like the red. It's nicely angled. It's decently thick, but with the angle, you're looking at effective 345, but there's just this big shoot me, F me guy right here. You know what I'm saying? So it's unfortunate. There's plenty of tanks like it that have really good turrets, and then just this one big weak spot up on top that just collects shots right and left. As far as a side scraper, the sides are okay, but yeah, no one's going to bother. Unless that's covered up, they're just going to shoot you through the hole right there, guys. I mean, effective armor 216, even with the angling, it's a 140 thickness, and then with the angling 216, there's all kinds of tier 8 heavies with standard pen that's going to go through that. Never mind tier 9s or people dabbing numero 2. So, yeah, it's not great. It is not great as far as that goes. Let's look at a quick comparison. I didn't pick a whole lot of tanks. Honestly, I didn't really know what to pick because at tier 9, it thins out with the premium stuff, premium award tanks. And there's only one other as far as I know. Maybe there's a Clan Wars one I'm unaware of. I can't think of it right now if there is. But the Object 752, which is an autoloader as well. And I just chucked the E77 because I think it was a new one last year or fairly recently a new premium or reward tier 9 tank. I believe the Toro is actually a premium. You take a look at it here. I always forget. There we go. Yes, so it's making extra money, extra experience, and it makes bonds. I forgot about that. That's always the nice thing about the tier 9 premiums. It makes bonds. All right, let's go back here. The E77, was it one as well, fellas? I don't remember. Yes, so another premium. All right, good. And I believe the 752 is as well. So back to the comparison, what do we have? 360 alpha is relatively low, but remember you've got 4 shells. The problem with that is you got 3 seconds in between each shell. That's a fairly long wait, so it's not a tank that you're going to jump out and go bang, 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 bang. You're going to have to wait a little while, and the problem with that, of course, is now you're soaking up shots and return shots, so you're going to have to use your auto loader, reloader as carefully as possible. Here's the timing: 16 for the first one, 14, 12, and 10 as a cyclical fire at 10 seconds. That's actually not bad, but again, it's only a 360 alpha that you're getting. Whereas the 7.52 is dropping 390 and the E77 with the cyclical is at 460. Gun stats wise, -8. Got a -8 in the 7.52, -8. They all have the same gun depression. Aiming time's as good as the E77. And look at that accuracy. We already saw that we got mine down to 0.29. It starts at 0.34, 0.35, I think, because it gets a bonus for having a crew in it, I believe. And that brings us to a DPM, okay DPM of 2048, at least in regards to these tanks. E77 at 2,249 and the object at 1,800. In general, the Tier 9 premiums so far have not been overpowered. They've been okay, I would say balanced for the most part. This one does seem to be balanced. So if your definition of a good tank is overpowered, this is not it. If your definition of a good tank is competent and can be played and isn't terrible, then the Toro's a decent, good tank. All right, that's the way I look at it anyway. That's the way I assess the overpowered thing. All right, yeah, 3 seconds between us. Wanted to talk about 53 seconds, 54 seconds, just about to reload all 4 shells. That's a long time. So be real careful about dropping all 4 and expecting to get your 4 back really quickly. You may have a good opportunity or reason to do that. Like any tank with an autoloader or auto reloader, clip, etc., if you can get it to the mid to late game, it gets more and more effective because of that 4-shot autoloader closing guys out. Armor we looked at already, 140 on the hull, 200 on the turret, which sounds like not a lot, but remember the armor profile, nicely sloped. You're getting some pretty good bounces off of it. Really tall hull though, so it's hard to cover up. Be careful with that hull. Here's the top speed, 45 and 18 backwards, which is actually pretty sprightly for a heavy tank. So you drop a turbo guy on that, you're almost hitting 50, which is really pretty nice. Specific power is pretty good at 15.38 right there. Hit points wise, it's sitting at 1700, which is kind of low for a Tier 9 heavy tank. It's got good traverse speed at 36.51, so I found it very maneuverable in terms of a heavy tank at Tier 9. Didn't bother me at all. And camo, none to really speak of. It's got a 390 view range, which is pretty good for a heavy tank. We'll take that. Not bad at all. So what do we have here? We got an interesting creature, this Toro, this bull. It's got an auto loader on it, auto reloader. It's only dropping 360 alpha, but it does have 4 shells. The 4 shells shoot relatively slowly with the 3-second interclip. So there's a lot of balancing factors going on here. It's pretty maneuverable. I would call it more in the heavium regime in terms of how you want to play this thing with these stats. Be very careful about going up and trying to face punch E77s. And if you're going to do so, you've got to work really hard to keep the hull from being shot. There you go. Side scraping. Remember, it's a rear turreted heavy tank. So if you are going to side scrape, try not to bring the front of the hull out from behind the building. At least that is helpful in terms of being a rear turreted tank, because the turret should clear first, and hopefully you don't have to show them any of your hull other than the side, which you want to keep on an auto bounce sort of thing. All right, cool. Although as I'm looking at it, I'm wondering right here, let's go back to this. I'm wondering about this guy. That it looks like there's probably, yeah, it looks like there's a hitbox behind that, right? Yeah. Okay, great. So there you go. Another thing to aim at. Of course, there's the hatch. This is probably an easier target, even if you're side scraping out. So there you have it. Take the good with the bad on that, my friends. Let's take a look at some gameplay with the Toro. Well, this was my best game. It's not a spectacular result. We got 2,700 damage and some assist in there, I believe. So we're on proc, spawned into the north. We're going to head down south onto the 5-6 line and see what we can do supporting. Maybe shots up to the hill, maybe shots back across. There's no artillery, so in this game I'm thinking, all right, let's cruise up here. Maybe I can work a little turret action. I do have a -8 gun depression, so I should be able to use this middle ridge. Only showing my turret. See what we can get done right here. So we come on up. So there's that -8 actually working out for you there. A lot of the rear turreted tanks won't be able to make that shot because as you come up that hill, you just don't have the gun depression. So -8, -10 would be nicer, but the Char ends up losing a few hit points to that. And I wasn't quite reloaded with everything, so I will struggle with that just a bit. It's not my favorite game mechanic, and I don't play a whole lot of the tanks with this auto reloader thing here, so I tend to, unfortunately, shoot a little too much, or maybe not think about saving shells. So there's a guy up there. We've got a 50 T or 50 PR, TPR, whatever it is, TPPR. A couple guys on the 5-6 line, so I'm feeling like I don't have to just sit on the 5-6 line. Looks like they've got enough support. I can cruise on over here, see if we can shoot some guys. This is where I want to kind of test this thing's capability with its hold down right here. Again, I got -8 gun depression, so this is pretty nice for a rear turreted tank. Let's see if we can get a shot on this guy. No, not quite. My gunnery skills are a bit lacking. Okay, so we'll back out. That wreck right there has got me working it a little bit here. That might have been a hit, don't know. I did get lit doing that. So now we're working that one shell. Take a shot, and 10 seconds later, 9.6 with my setups. That's not bad at all for 360 alpha. I mean, it's almost medium tank-esque, even for a 9 or 10. Not quite, though, so they're a little bit faster usually, and they might have a little bit more, or at least the same alpha. Okay, let's miss this guy. There we go. Those are just bad shots on my part. All 4 shells, not one hit. Terrible. Terrible. Most of that had to do with me. I'm really hoping he's just sitting there. So we're just going to stab this one. Oh, boo. Alright, so we missed that guy. Now we're waiting for a long reload. Honestly, that was probably a dumb shot. More than likely, he was not going to be sitting there, and it cost me another long wait. Remember that each subsequent shell is reloaded faster, so I'm going to do a bunch of just shooting because I have opportunities. That bummed me out. Track no damage. Rocking back and forth a little bit. Actually, the timer, it's interesting that the timer is working in the replay for the auto reloader. Did they fix that? Or is it just the auto loaders that don't work? That's really interesting. I was hoping he would poke up and over, but bad shot, missed. Struggling to get damage downrange, fellas, just with bad gunnery, basically. I see the T95 pushing, so I'm really hoping that he's going to start lighting some guys and get some work. But unfortunately, the 58's, well, he's probably auto. He's probably permalit by everything in front of him by now. And he's going to have to get pretty close before he starts lighting them. Oh. There we go. There we go. Let's push up here. We'll use the turret. Get aimed in on this guy. Boom. There we go. That's nice. 393, little high roll. He's dead. Ground. There we go. 386. Little low roll. Not. Oh, that's actually high roll, right? 360. Got 386 out of it. Made ourselves a nice little advantage. All right, we got more dudes here. There we go. Hit the 103. Nice. Usually at tier 9, when you have a heavy and you're shooting this much, you've cranked out a lot of damage. But when you're only talking a 360 alpha, I probably should have stayed there shooting. But it kind of occurred to me that I keep shooting the first shell, and that's limiting my DPM. So let's go reload some stuff. We'll go kill off this mutts or get a little closer to these guys. There we go. My hole is definitely being exposed right there a bit. See how I can move back a little bit further down. Yeah, kind of rushed that shot. He died anyway. Kunza dies. We're at 1,869 damage. This is the thing with the auto reloaders like this for me. I have a hard time giving up that shot to wait for it to reload. But I think it's probably a good idea to do so in this part of the game. Notice it's only 7 to 5. And yes, the guy was lit. But if I wait a little longer, I might have had several more shells to put downrange. Okay, here we go. Now I'm going to come over here and try to work on this Malshin. I'm going to use this rock to sort of shield me from all their campers in the corner as best I can. Alright, I got lit. Let's come up here. Oh man, am I going to get shot? I don't know. Let's work on this Malshin. We'll zoom in nicely here. Unfortunately, I have switched to heat, and now I am shooting heat into tracks with the angle and the Malshin, which is not great. So I got a little spotting damage out of that, of all things, 407. Working the you know, support tank thing. Not my favorite thing to do in the game right here, and probably not using the auto reloader to its best effect. All right, here we go. We'll get a shot on him maybe this time. Oh, somebody got him first. All right, now that the Malshin's dead and they have dealt with the guys on the hill off to my left, I can push up underneath these dudes, and this tank has pretty good speeds. First thing I'm going to do is maybe side scrape here and see if I can catch somebody out somehow with my spotting. I don't have great burn through, but it looks like I have maximum. We're very close to it. Tree down someone's movement. So we'll just use the decent speed of the Toro. Look, it just kind of gets up and goes, man. You got to like it. I mean, that's a heavy. I'm doing 48. Just zipped on down there, no problem. So we got 869 damage. The VZ's in trouble. There's only 3 more. Now there's only 3 more TDs hiding out in here. I get slapped by the XM, unfortunately. That's alright. He did not get lit doing that. That kind of sucked. But we'll use this terrain. We'll sneak up underneath these guys and see if we can't get a few lights. The AT-15's moving in. Usually it's kind of a race now to see which one of us can get. There we go. So we shoot him, reload into the next shell, use the terrain. I really don't want to eat the T-30 shot and then get finished off by the AT, so we'll be a little bit more careful there. Let's see if we can push up here, and oh, he's got no hit points, so someone's going to kill him. Nice. There he is. Go into his lower hole. Oh, and just a little late on 2 of those shells. So looks like one of the blind shots did go in, so it was 2,700. I want to say damage. We'll see the cards after this. And ended up with 2,242 assist on the strength of the decent mobility of it, keeping my hit points. Really playing it as a support heavy tank on that one. Obviously the team is sort of romping through this whole thing. Not a bad little almost 5,000, what, 4,600 or so combined on proc and a heavy. Could have used the auto reloader to better effect for sure. That'll be something I'll have to work on with this tank. So I guess I think I said early in the video that I didn't do well with it. I suppose at 70% I really did well with it. It's just my DPG was terrible. So even though I was winning, I always felt like I was sort of not doing the things I needed to do to make this tank really sing. And I don't know, I haven't looked at a whole lot of the other reviews on it. I don't think it's really well liked, but you guys have to let me know how you like this tank. So let's go back to the garage and we'll close this one out. Well, all right, guys, I sort of summed some of it up just a second ago, but Toro, what do we have here? We got an auto reloader. We got a nice mobile gun platform. It's quite accurate. So I think if you're very used to working through the auto reloader kind of mechanics and you're good at that, you might actually be able to make this thing sing. Because you do have those 4 shells if you need it. It's only about a 9-second reload. If you don't, you can keep it firing cyclically. The mobility is good for repositioning, so you're not a Mongo heavy tank that's going to get stuck on a flank or have a really hard time repositioning. This thing can run with the mediums and reposition pretty well. That being said, the armor is somewhat indifferent. The turret is kind of great, but also sucks with the tumor, and the hull is just cheese. So if you can work around those weaknesses, you can make the armor work okay. As you saw in my 10 games, small sample size, I was only able to make it work kind of. And honestly, when you're hull down and you got a big old tumor sticking out, there's not a whole bunch you can do about that other than the wiggle jiggle and try not to be what's the word I'm looking for? Predictable, right? In the way that you're moving your turret and coming out, and let them pick apart your entire tank through one little hatch. I'd have loved to have given you some more gameplay on it, but honestly, that was the only game that was worth a, you know what? I mean, at 1300 average DPG, I just wasn't doing a whole bunch with this tank. I like the not 70%. I'll take it, but this is clearly not going to stay there. We'll keep on playing it as we go. It's going to go into the hopper for the 100 Battle Challenge. I think I'll enjoy playing it overall. It's kind of unique. It certainly has its strengths. I just have to learn to not try and force it into the assault heavy peg when it's really not. It's more of a support kind of heavy. All right, fellas, that's all I've got. Let me know what you think of this. If you've got it, we will see ya.